Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. We're going to talk about the Billy Meier case this evening. I'm going to bring in and talk a little bit about the potential coming civil war, and it certainly looks, if you look at the things that are happening, and if you studied the Meier case for a while, and then you look at the things that are happening, it kind of makes your jaw drop open a little bit. And I think a lot of us are suffering a little shock from the election, regardless of what side you were on. The things that are happening are a little overwhelming, a little over the top. And if Billy's correct, they're going to get a little more over the top than they have been. I still hold out hope that we can bring things together and put things back into a state where we can continue to thrive. And I feel a little led to step back to Billy's early life, which I never seem to tire of hearing this story, and I do apologize to those of you who've heard it before. But there's something so important about this information, and next Wednesday, November 16th, we're going to talk with Daniel Cooper, who will tell us a little bit more why this man had to be born at this specific time and why he was born in Switzerland, and we're going to go on that whole story on Wednesday. Tonight, Solaris Blue Raven may call in and talk a little bit more about current events and things like that. But I want to take a second to talk about how it all began. You know, Billy Edward Albert Meier is a farmer. I guess you could call him a farmer and an author. He lives in Switzerland. Hello, I hope you folks can hear me now. That was rather strange. My line dropped. My Skype connection dropped for some reason, and I don't know why. Not sure how much you guys heard or how long I was gone, but let me go ahead and repeat what I was just talking about. I was talking about, let me chat here in the chat room. Do you hear? Yes, you do hear. Okay. Thanks, Eve. So in northern Switzerland, 1945, it's right after World War II, or not after, it's in fact still going on. Billy starts to get these telepathic messages and these mental images of this very, very elderly extraterrestrial man named Svath. Eventually, Billy's told to go out into the forest near his home there in Bulak again, which is in northern Switzerland at this time. And out of the sky comes this very strange pear-shaped craft. Billy goes into the ship with Svath, who he almost feels like he knows because he's been getting these telepathic messages. It's interesting that Svath spoke in the dialect of German that Billy knew in his native village. Very interesting. Yeah. Billy was led in the Svath ship. He was asked to sit down, and there were small screens on the ship all over, and Billy could see people that were down below the ship. The ship at this point shot off some 70,000 meters into the air. Now, what's interesting, at this point, Billy has the development of a 35-year-old man. He's only 5 years old, and Svath would be his new teacher. Now, what's interesting, and what I always go back to these early contacts, is because Svath told Billy that the people of the earth were entering into a very dangerous time. And boy, that is so obvious now. On either side of the election, if you're a Trump fan or a Hillary person or some other group, you can see the trouble that the country's in. And you can see the protests, and you can see, and everyone psychologically, deeply psychologically, has a sense of impending trouble. Now, here we are back in 1945. This young boy is being brought into this ship, and Svath, his mentor, is telling him that the earth is entering into a very dangerous time, and Svath starts to transmit this great knowledge to Billy. He starts to tell Billy about his previous lives. He starts to tell Billy about the universal consciousness. And he starts to tell Billy about this great mission that he's going to have in the future on the earth when he grows up a little bit. But he also puts a device on Billy's head with all of these different wires. And it allowed Svath to open up these tremendous abilities that Billy had in his earlier personalities. And Billy felt these unusual forces penetrating him, and he knew events in the future, and he started to get this great wellspring of knowledge. And Svath then removed the strange instrument from Billy's head, and he explained to Billy that certain abilities will awaken with him because of this instrument. And again, these were abilities that Billy had developed in previous lifetimes when he lived as Emmanuel, or he lived as the person that we call Jeremiah, or when he lived as the person that we call Enoch, that the Maya material calls Enoch. But all these previous personalities were brought together, and this device gave him also some ability that would protect Billy's mind from others who were going to try to force themselves into Billy's mind. Again, Billy has other personalities, other bodies during other lifetimes where he had done similar work on the earth. And he was told by Svath that he had entered into life as an announcer of the laws of creation. The first contact that Billy had with Svath was February 3rd, 1945, at about 10 minutes after 12. And Billy got, again, this message to go into the forest near his home in Bulak, Switzerland. And that's when this all started. Billy was told many things about the future. He was told that people would try to kill him in the future. They would be blinded by hate. He was told that his wife would turn against him. And it was interesting, even at this young age, even at 5 years old, Billy was very wise for his age. Older Earth humans would ask him for advice. Billy's words contain a vibration which had a great inner power, which expressed his modesty, his love for human beings. And he's always had this inspirational power that would cause people to contemplate his words in a meditative way. Now, Billy's name is Edward, which means guardian of the treasure. He's known as Beam, but you may have noticed that Billy always stays in the background because the human beings of Earth, we tend to create idols for ourselves. And Svath told him not to go into public very much. And the spiritual teaching associated with the Meyer case is eventually intended to transform the human beings in our world. It's intended to transform us, to wake us out of our sleep. And this will become a worldwide movement eventually that will bring peace, love, freedom. And that doesn't mean that Billy would necessarily live to see all of that peace, love, and freedom. I think it will take about 800 years for all these transitions to take place. In fact, Billy was told by Thoth he would have to suffer very many difficulties, and that he would lose his left arm in an accident, and that there would be attempts on his life, and he would be called a hoaxer. One of the things that Thoth taught Billy was something called spiritual telepathy, which enabled young Edward to receive information from a spiritual plane called Arahata Thrasata. Humanity on any planet, on any world, in any solar system, in any galaxy, follows 7 steps of evolution. We start out as primitive, we go to rational life, and then intelligent life. The fourth stage is really interesting. That's when we perfect space travel. We can jump from star to star with almost no time passing. We become these incredible genetic engineers that can literally create sentient biological life. Billy's third contact, Semyasi, her ship actually had a biological computer, a sentient biological computer that she had telepathic contact with. Now, this is the fourth stage of evolution. The Pleiaren are one stage higher than that even. And at the higher stages, human beings learn to use something called the swinging wave in the German. It's something associated with our spirit form. It's associated with these electromagnetic powers that can be very, very powerful. So these Pleiaren, they use the swinging wave, which is associated with your spirit form. The swinging wave can make you telekinetic. You can move things with your mind. One of the things Semyasi did was burn some photographs with her mind. These are abilities which eventually humans have after you've finished 40 to 60 million incarnations into a physical body. Now, the Pleiaren are at this stage. The next stage for their society is stage 6 of human evolution, which involves becoming semi-spiritual and semi-physical. A very, very interesting stage. It's really the second phase of evolution, and I think we spend 56 million years there, and then after that, we move into a purely spiritual existence where we live 2.9 billion years in just a purely spiritual stage, and that starts out with this spiritual plane called Arahata Thrasata, which took me on that huge tangent. And I do want to bring a caller on the air, and I believe this is Solaris. Solaris, are you there, or is this another caller?
I'm here. Hi, Mark. Hi.
Welcome to the show. I went on a long rant.
You're
there.
Fine. Good information.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, I think we need it. The show, I kind of introduced the Meyer case again, in case there are some new listeners, just to kind of reintroduce things. And I always love to talk about Billy's early life anyway. And I think you and I are going to talk about the Meyer case on one of your programs soon.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, you're always awesome on my show. Yeah, we have to do a pre-record on that one, but yeah, you will be on my radio show, Hyperspace. I'm looking forward to that.
That will be on freedomslips.com?
No, that's going to be on Hyperspace, and it will be on December 2nd. That's the night, but it's going to be a pre-record, remember, because you're not going to be able to stay up late. So we're going to do a pre-record on that one.
Is that KCOR?
KCOR Digital Radio Network on December 2nd. So everybody tune in on that night, and you'll hear Mark Snyder.
We will we'll go into this kind of spiritual detail in a little more depth, which, it's funny. I don't understand all this stuff. I tell you, it's hard to put into words. It's hard to put into words the contrast between what we're seeing in the world today and what we could have if we can get into this mode of right thinking. We haven't chatted since the election, and I know we were both on the Trump side, but I think the pro-Trump, against Trump people see the conflict in the nation. And I see this as something that's very dangerous. Wouldn't you agree this is a very dangerous time?
Well, it's dangerous only because, the propaganda happening because of mainstream media. They're the ones that actually fueled this whole situation against Trump. They made up a lot of propaganda against him. And unfortunately, so did D.C. and so did the Clintons. They literally sat there with swords pointed to him. Now, instead of being graceful about his election, they've just been vindictive, and this whole thing could have been avoided. I mean, these illusions of these, they're not even protests anymore; they become riots, and at that point in the continuum, you have to put a stop to all that. But that's the reaction of when you have something coming in that's a higher vibration, with bigger change, with no limitation, that's going to change the dynamic of their corruption. And he is real. I love Donald J. Trump. I'm very, very excited that he is president of the United States elect, and I know that his presence alone is designed to disengage the cabals, literally take down the New World Order, whatever you want to call these agenda orders. They're literally there to control, manipulate, and enslave people. And I know most people don't get that, but truly that's what's happening. So yeah, it's kind of like a necessary thing right now in a sense that people are going to act out, they're going to have tantrums, they're going to flip out because they are not getting it, and they have been programmed. And these are what I call the sleeper cells, too, by the way. The ones that have been programmed with social engineering to the point where they don't understand truth and they haven't done the research. There's no reason for them in any form or design not to like Trump at all. They're just not getting it. And a lot of these people are not from here. They're kind of like crossed over from the border. They're illegals. A lot of them are underage. They're not even real voters, the people that are causing some of this ruckus here with these riots. Go ahead, Mark.
I don't know if you heard this, but I think the Clintons wore purple as a kind of an occult ritual that's supposed to have this. Did you hear any of that?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a combination between red and blue for the parties is what it is. But I'll tell you what, that's my color. The color they were wearing I laugh at because I use that frequency and that color a lot, and that's a transmutational color. So occultism-wise, they can pretend they know what they're doing, but honestly, when you've done that much corruption, anything you do in magic isn't going to happen for you. It's just going to backfire. But that is a transmutational color. So however you want to look at it, I know they were wearing it for the blending of parties, the Democrats and the Republicans on that scale, the red and the blue. Actually, in Colorado, the color was purple, that color, because they were blending. Supposedly, the Republicans and the Democrats were kind of blending that here. So.
Well, some people were on the air saying that it was like a death curse, like an occult death curse they were putting on Trump or something.
Well, no, people want to assassinate him. Don't get me wrong. There are crazy people out there right now I feel so sorry for him because he's such a good man. And the bottom line is you have a lot of people out there who are wanting to go after him for the wrong reasons. Literally, they're really picking the wrong battle with this man. But I'll tell you, he has to be extra careful. But no, it's not a death curse. That's a transmutational frequency. And anybody who knows alchemy, I look at it on alchemical, and I've been through it. You know my background. I'm a mystical scientist, so I can tell you any little taboos that they try to do, we already know that their intent is malicious towards him. They would love to see him assassinated. There's no doubt about that. But no, they're powerless. They're disempowered. What's happened to them right now, and I think what people are noticing, is that they are disempowered now. It's kind of like the chains have been pulled and cut and the cords have been cut. So I don't see them having a lot of power like they think they have, but I do think he has to be extremely careful, and he is in a lot of danger because, and I'll tell you who ignited this, as I said before, mainstream media, they should be arrested for inciting this whole thing and prosecuted and sued.
Oh, do you think it's the fault of mainstream media?
A lot of it. Oh, yeah, a lot of what they're doing against Trump, absolutely, because, you remember this in the start of the elections, Mark. They were coming up with all kinds of propaganda, basically attacking Trump to avoid the truth about what Hillary is about, or Hillary, what do you want to call her, literally, because she's really the criminal with a criminal background, and yet to avoid her criminal acts, they tried to deflect everything back onto Trump. And the media, the mainstream media, sat there and just literally went with it and started rolling with it and started attacking Trump, which was really unfortunate because that sparked this whole psychological war game, psychological programming towards the mainstream. So to a point where now you're seeing the craziness of these people that are literally being programmed. It's really, really sad. But this shows you the kind of power propaganda and mainstream media has over the week.
I'm astounded at how powerful it is. Let me talk a little bit about some of the the Meyer prophecies here. It says in context 2:15 that yet misery on the earth will continue, as two terrible civil wars will break out in America, whereby one will follow the other. Afterwards, the United States of America will break apart, and deadly hostility will prevail among her, which then leads to the division into 5 different territories, and it cannot be prevented that sectarian fanatics will also play a dictatorial role. So the Meyer material predicts 2 civil wars and the United States breaking into 5 different areas. Now, I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I don't know if you've probably heard this before, right, Solaris?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have.
There is a Russian professor named Igor Panarin. He's a professor and a political scientist. He predicted in 1998 that the U.S. would disintegrate within the next few years. He predicted this in the summer of 1998 based on classified data about the state of the U.S. economy and things that these analysts were sending to him. He forecast the probable disintegration of the U.S. into 6 parts. The Meyer material says 5 areas. The 6 parts were supposed to occur in 2010. Now, this didn't happen yet, so we're lucky. He said it would be a civil war triggered by mass immigration, economic decline, and moral degradation. Do you have any comments about that?
Well, that's pretty spot on, but I will say I kind of saw a break insofar as that happening, too. I will say that Trump is an ideal leader right now. If we can get him into office, I think you're going to see a country that can be recovered quite easily. But I will say, yeah, because of this propaganda, because of these cabals, because they don't want to have him in the illusion of power, because, of course, that's going to disempower them immediately, globally speaking. It's already, him being elected already has already disempowered them. So this is going to be a problem. But I will say I don't think it's going to turn out the way they want it to be turned out. I think that there are enough of us here who are very what we call higher dimensional beings that are here that are going to help stabilize us. But it's going to be, there's conflict everywhere. You're seeing this. But take a look at the people protesting. They're very weak and they're very violent and they're very illiterate. They're not people that are educated. They're brainwashed and they're slept. And the people in control and the illusion of the cabals are the same breed. They're the same kind. They're just in the illusion that they have a lot of money. So I'll tell you what my take is. And let me ask you something, too. You mentioned, I know Billy Meyer mentioned this, that at some point it seemed like the Hyperboreans or a specific race was going to come back and assist the Germans, or it was going to assist. I get the vibe that we might have some backup at some point in the continuum. I'm not going to say it's a year or 2 from now, but I'm just telling you, it seems to me like we are being assisted by higher frequencies right now. I don't know what your impression is.
There is, I think, in Contact 251, it says sometime in the future there'll be some kind of extraterrestrial intervention in terms of some war or something. It's a very brief kind of thing that isn't discussed very much, but I do have a caller. Are you willing to take a caller?
Sure.
I'm going to bring 770. You're on the air, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. You were pondering a question I've been pondering for some time now, as I see the reality of a substantial part of the United States not willing to abide by the rule of law as expressed by the Constitution of the United States. Now, I find it fascinating that in the wake of this election, these radical anti-American unconstitutional elements have all of a sudden discovered the Electoral College, and over 2 million of them allegedly have signed a petition to importune the Electoral College to ignore the results of their state elections and exercise their abilities, which frankly they are allowed to, and ignore their state results and vote in Hillary Clinton. I find it amazing that all of a sudden some of the people who have utterly disregarded the Constitution heretofore, now all of a sudden are looking forward to one of its Article 2 elements to invoke a reversal of the election. And I say to myself, there's nothing else. There's never anything about the Constitution they're willing to consistently observe. It's merely a means to an end. when they see the opportunity for it. And I would submit to you, maybe a civil war is inevitable when a significant part of the population refuses to abide by the rule of law, either in letter or in spirit. We've already disregarded Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5, requiring a natural-born citizen, allowed someone who certainly cannot be a natural-born citizen to assume the office twice. And in Europe, usurpation used to be an automatic cause for civil war.
Well, very good point you make, caller. Solaris, I'm sure you could chime in on this.
Well, I want to say you're very up to speed. That's very interesting information. It's very accurate. My take is that, they're probably going to try everyone and everything they can think of to try to control, manipulate what's going to happen with the electoral votes. But I don't think they're going to have a snowball's chance in hell. I'll be honest with you. If you look at the people that are proposing this, they are just monsters. And honestly, that will create a civil war. If they do anything to change that, insofar as what's going on with President-elect Trump, and try to contort it into something in her favor, you will see a revolutionary war. You will see another war come through. I guarantee you that. I don't think they're going to be stupid enough to do that, caller. And I'm sorry I don't have your name.
I agree with you. I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to try to do it. They're not going to succeed. It's highly unlikely in any event that it would succeed. I mean, I don't anticipate that. I think it's indicative of their mindset, what they are willing to attempt to subvert, the will of the people and the constitutional process. So, I mean, I think that's more important than the actuality of their success. And I think we may just have to gird our loins for a civil war. I mean, I've been seeing it coming for some time. The extent of the depravity of these people is almost beyond belief. Their ability to lie, they were willing to elect. Just think about it for a minute. A clearly uncontroverted, morally corrupt, depraved, probably treasonous criminal from the Democratic Party as President of the United States, even if the facts were all but absolute that she was, in fact, likely that. And they were still willing to elect her, millions of them. When you're faced with a country that is in a state, I don't know why it's so inconceivable it might be headed toward a civil war.
No, it's not inconceivable at all. I think right now, though, we're running the energy for a bigger scenery, but I do agree with you. Yeah, they're going to stop at nothing. This is what concerns me. They will stop at nothing to destroy Trump right now, so that's why he has to be extra protected, extra shielded. We've got to go full speed ahead, and honestly, they need to go after the people that have sparked this whole thing. They need to go after the Clintons and everybody else in D.C. associated with that who've expedited this kind of behavior with this crazy rioting groups of, and you're right, they're not educated. None of them are. These are scum of the earth, these people that are doing this stuff.
No, they've been educated now. Oh, no, they've been educated. They've been educated by cultural Marxists, progressives, and leftists in academia and in the media and in Hollywood for the last 40 or 50 years, and they've imbibed the lessons of the cultural Marxist left. So they're educated. It's just that they're so utterly miseducated, they're anti-American.
Yeah, well,
they're educated all right. And have you noticed, by the way, that when it comes to people who assassinate presidents, if you look at the historical record of presidential assassins, they are always some species of Democrat, leftist, or nutcase. But they're never like mainstream conservatives or right-wingers or of the any type, despite the fact that the left is constantly trying to preach to us that it's always some right-winger who wants to assassinate some progressive, enlightened president. But if you look at the historical record, it's not borne out at all by a biographical study of the people who actually, either tried to assassinate the president or actually succeed.
Mm-hmm.
But, the one thing about progressives, leftists, and cultural Marxists, they are adept at turning reality into other than what it is. I mean, this is one of the things. They're not successful at governing or making the world a better place. They are extremely successful at killing people, whether it's life in the womb or life due to political assassination, murder, and genocide. They're successful at making people miserable. And they're successful at turning reality in other than what it is. They literally airbrush history on every occasion, just like Stalin or Lenin or anyone. Any of these people, they're all stem from similar well springs. And what we're looking at is nothing short of what the brown shirts were in Nazi Germany, or the Red Front who were fighting them in Nazi Germany or during the Weimar era. I mean, they're all the same. They all have a same tendency to thuggery, intimidation, and bullying.
Let me throw something in here, caller. One thing that I remember, and I'm interested if you remember this from the time when the debates, and I think I saw this on a YouTube where Hillary was speaking. She said that she would go to war with the Russians and the Syrians if elected, and would be willing to use nuclear weapons. Am I correct about that?
She said, I don't think she said something quite that explicit, but she certainly intimated that she would do it, and I have no doubt she was willing to do it to throw off attention from her legal troubles. I mean, this woman is utterly evil of the first rank. She is literally a political vampire, or I don't know, maybe she's a RICO political criminal family, her and her husband, and probably her daughter too. And I believe they're capable of anything. I mean, I literally will never put anything past someone who believes in infanticide. So I don't put anything past them. I just don't think she quite said that, though.
Okay. Maybe I was wrong. But
is she capable of it? Yeah, I absolutely believe she is. So as a practical matter, I don't think it makes much difference.
One thing,
I've been watching this woman ever since their first time I became aware of them when he began to run for the presidency. I've never seen anything like these two. I mean, pathological criminals, political criminals.
It's very interesting.
The lying is beyond belief from this woman and her husband. Well, she's even worse than he was. And that's really saying something.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this out. There's this great book. It's called Clinton's War on Women by Roger Stone. I don't know if you've read that. But it tells the whole story that, way back when Bill was governor of Arkansas, the CIA was flying in about $100 million a month of cocaine being flown into Mena, Arkansas, where it was then loaded onto different planes and flown into other places and sold. And I think they were laundering the money through the Rose Law Firm where Hillary worked. Now, have you heard any of this background?
Absolutely. I'm very aware of it. I think the stories are highly likely, given the nature of the Clintons. However, I'm a former police officer, and I believe you've got to have evidence you can take to a grand jury, and it's not quite enough for an indictment on that. But I believe they certainly could have done it. But let's look at what they have done, what we know they have done, thanks to WikiLeaks emails. We know about the Russian Uranium One deal. We know about the Clinton Foundation and the Haiti disaster relief. We know about the likelihood of them running weapons through Syria to destabilize the Syrian government with the Stinger missiles and whatnot, and that Christopher Stevens may have been running weapons through, that was why he got killed in Benghazi, because he was running weapons to the rebels there. We know about the Mark Turi and the arms deals that were going on there. It is not at all inconceivable they were doing that in Mena. I'm just saying there's not quite enough evidence for me to say it conclusively. But with the other stuff, as the saying goes, hell yes. I think they were doing it. I think they're doing it now. I think the evidence is overwhelming. And if this woman had been elected, if the American people had been insane enough to elect this woman, the first order of business of Congress should have been to prepare articles of impeachment to get rid of her. That should be the first thing they would have to do, articles of impeachment to get rid of her, and then to draw up criminal articles of indictment criminally once she's a private citizen. I mean, I've never seen the like. I've never seen the like of this in my life. And that includes the collusion that she was getting from the Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch, the director of the FBI, and everything else. I mean, this is literally the worst open, brazen political corruption I've ever seen in my life, and I've been watching this stuff for decades.
Yeah. Solaris, I'd like to hear your take on this. What about the head of the FBI, Comey, who has basically just, tried to give her clean papers and let her get away with pretty much anything? Any thoughts on that, Solaris?
Look, his hand was forced by renegade, rogue FBI agents and New York Police Department investigators who are getting ready to spill the beans.
All right, that's it. I'm going to let you go. You Sky wants to rant. That's fine. Listen, Mister, I don't know who you are, but you're projecting. I get you're frustrated, but you need to have a little bit of tone to your voice because you're screaming at the top of your lungs, so that's not okay. Okay, seriously, it's not okay. No, you know what? I'm going to let you guys chat because I've got to take my dog out anyway. So I'm going to let you go. But what I think about Comey is basically he's been bought and sold. That's the bottom line. He's been bought and sold in the story. So, but I'll let you go. I do have to get out. Let me just take my dog out anyway. I'll be back later or whatever. I'll just chat with you. Okay? Bye.
Bye, Solaris. Oh, well. Color, you sound like you've really done your homework, which is very impressive. You know, and it's a shame because I think people, they take it as being mean-spirited. But if you've really, really done your homework, you see that there's this whole gigantic history of corruption with the Clintons. It's really astonishing, and I'm glad you've come on tonight and shared some of this with us.
Well, look, I think literally the history, the future of the republic is at stake. I thought it was with the election, with the potential or incipient election of Hillary Clinton, and I think we've at least temporarily beaten it back. But one thing about the left, they are implacable. I mean, for them, everything is what used to be incrementalism, but now I think with the election of Barack Obama, I think they figure they've gained enough ground so they can now come out and begin their final stage offensive, kind of like Mao talked about with the stages of guerrilla warfare. I think they're now ready for like their version of the Tet Offensive. They're not underground anymore. They're coming out and they're coming above ground and they're going all out. Now, they were temporarily set back just like the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong were in 1968 by the election of Donald Trump. But they won't quit. They won't quit. They're girding their loins and they're regrouping for more, and it's obvious by what we're seeing out there in the streets.
Now, how do you think we can maintain peace within our society with this going on?
I don't know that we can, because I think part of us are insisting on the rule of law being observed, and another element is saying, no, it won't be. It can't be. It's unfair, it's sexist, it's racist, it's homophobic, it's xenophobic, and we need to change it. But not through amendment, mind you. Not through the amendment process, but just changing it. Just letting us have our way and do what we want. So I don't know if you can keep peace like that. Now, the only way to keep peace is through the rule of law and an attempt to appeal to reason. But these people, many of them who are doing this, are simply irrational. They are almost insane. So, I mean, how can you deal? Look, you take people who are insane and you put straitjackets on them and you put them in rubber padded rooms. And it often means you have a fight on your hands when you do it. So, I mean, I don't know. We got people who are just criminal, deluded, insane. They say that the Constitution under the Second Amendment doesn't mean what it says. But the right to abortion, clearly, according to them, clearly stated in the Constitution, is an absolute sacrament that must not be infringed upon any circumstances. And what are you going to do with people like this?
Well, I hope that the nation doesn't come apart. I'm hoping that we figure out a way. But you're right. I think that there is, right now, there is irrationality and irresponsibility. And I think some of these protests are not good.
Well, sir, look, I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to see this country break up into civil war. I love this country. It's the greatest country in the history of mankind. The Declaration and the Constitution together are the greatest documents ever written for governance and individual liberty, for good governance and individual liberty. I've served this country in 3 wars, and I got 2 Purple Hearts. Now, I don't want all that to go to waste, along with seeing, over a dozen of my buddies killed, fighting under this flag and under this country, for this country. I don't want to see that happen to it, but I just don't see anything else coming. The way these people have been indoctrinated, the sheer anti-Americanness of everything we look at around us.
And you know what's the shame?
I don't know what to say. I mean, they say that the very founding of this country was corrupted because, admittedly, it wasn't perfect. Admittedly, there was a great deal of injustice in it. But nonetheless, it was still the greatest country in the history of mankind from its inception. And it's more so today because of the reforms that have been instituted. But these Marxists don't care about that because they want to gain, because they don't believe in that sort of government, a government of enumerated powers and individual liberties. They believe in the state, the power of the state, over and above everything. And to the extent they can do it, that's what they're going to implement. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not this country was flawed and had slavery and had limited voting rights for certain groups of people, and whether or not it was flawed in any sense. I mean, these people, it doesn't matter where they be located in the world. This is the kind of government they be seeking to implement with anything. It's just merely something upon which to hang their hat and try to give themselves validity.
Are you aware of Obama's connections with Frank Marshall Davis and Bill Ayers?
Am I ever? Believe me, sir. When I lived in Chicago, this man was my state senator. I've known everything there is to know about him that's public on the record since 1994. I've got both of his books. I've studied extensively upon his usurpation. I know his names. I know it was Barry Sotero. His stepfather, Lolo Sotero, in 1972, registered in the St. Francis Assisi School under the name Barry Sotero, said he was a Muslim and an Indonesian citizen. It's right there on the school registration certificate. Yes, I'm acutely aware of Frank Marshall Davis and all of his corrupt connections. Now, there's not much of a thing about this man I don't know. That's why I'm appalled that the feckless, cowardly Republicans in Congress allowed him to assume power without a thorough, legitimate investigation into his provenance, his background, and his forged identity documents.
Basically, we've had an illegal presidency, 2 of them, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. He cannot be a natural-born citizen if you believe his life story. There is no way this man is a natural-born citizen. It's not possible. According to his life story, he was born a citizen of 3 countries at birth: Great Britain, Kenya, and the United States. Now, that's if you believe his life story. Now, how can you be a natural-born citizen owing no allegiance to any other nation when you're born a citizen of 3 countries at birth by your own admission?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, but we let it go. We let it go because we didn't want to be called names. We didn't want to be called racist. We want to be politically correct. We wanted to say to ourselves, delude ourselves by saying that electing this Marxist, this anti-American Marxist, would enable the nation to heal and become one, when the founding fathers of the framers of the Constitution, in their wisdom, gave us the mechanism that would keep the living, breathing embodiment and personification of the reason they put Article 2, Section 1, Clause 5 in the Constitution in there, keep him out. He's the reason they put it there. He governs like an enemy alien combatant. And no one seems to notice this and tie it to not observing Article 2.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Tell people about Frank Marshall Davis's background and how he worked for the Communist Party in the United States, and how he was a journalist for the Communist Party, and he was also kind of a bit of a pornographer as well, correct? Yeah,
he was a pornographer, probably a pederast, and he was aligned with elements in Chicago, too, before he went to Hawaii, where he became the head of the Communist Party in Hawaii. He was aligned with people like Vernon Jarrett, who was Valerie Jarrett's father-in-law. He was aligned with Vernon Jarrett, who was another radical, kind of a wobbly-type leftist and progressive there in Chicago. And he was Barack Obama's mentor. Barack Obama's grandfather, maternal grandfather, took him to study and mentor under Frank Marshall Davis, who, by the way, was on the FBI's list to be interned should there come war between the Soviet Union and the United States. The FBI had him singled out as a subversive.
No kidding.
Well, yeah, it's all there in the record.
That's
in his
crazy.
FBI files.
Do you think that Frank Marshall Davis was his biological father?
I don't know who his biological father was. I'm willing to entertain that possibility because of his physical resemblance to him and because of certain photographs that have been seen that looked like they were taken in Frank Marshall Davis' apartment. So I'm willing to entertain the possibility. See, the thing about this is we don't know who this guy is. The only thing about we know for sure is he ain't a natural-born citizen. He's got a counterfeit birth certificate. So there is nothing in a counterfeit document upon which you can rely. So now the question is, why did he give us this document, and what is the truth? And I believe any number of possibilities could be the truth, including his birthplace, the location of it, his father, his mother. You know, it says on that phony document that says he was born in Kapiolani Hospital in Honolulu, and the hospital refuses to corroborate the fact of his birth there, despite his public acknowledgement or statements that he was born there. Now think to yourself, sir, when in the history of the United States has any institution ever been afraid to acknowledge and publicly own the birthplace of a president of the United States, make it a tourist attraction with plaques and maybe a separate wing and hospital, and the state acknowledge it as such? Have you ever known of any such thing in the history of the United States? I know you have, and the answer, of course, is no. So what is it with this guy?
You know what's interesting,
this is simple. This is like such simple, ineluctable, inductive reasoning that it's just amazing to me the hoops and the contortions people go through to not draw the appropriate conclusions. The hospital where he claims to have been born will not corroborate his birth there.
You know what's also interesting? His college records are closed, and his professional experience as a lawyer is also closed, and we can't see either one of those things either.
In addition to that, students at a very public college in Columbia, none of them can remember seeing him attend class there. None of them. Wayne Allen Root, who was like the president of the alumni class in which he would share with Barack Obama, he says he don't remember seeing him there. He can't find anybody in class who will say they remember seeing him there. And whatever else you want to say about Barack Obama, he's a distinctive individual whom people would easily remember. People have no trouble remembering him from Harvard, do they? Or Occidental, or Punahou in Hawaii. But somehow nobody seems to remember him from Columbia. Another anomaly that no one seems to be able to answer with any certitude. Like everything in this murky character's background.
It's very strange indeed.
He's a composite. Who is this guy? We don't know. This property he owns in Chicago, or claims to own, at 5046 South Greenwood in Chicago, which I am very proud. I used to regularly drive by the place, is guarded with Secret Service protection paid for by taxpayer money. If you go into records, the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, and you look at the property identification number for that property, he's not listed as the owner. William Michelli is, who used to run his law firm.
That's
weird.
Why
is that? Why
is
so
that? Weird.
Everything about this guy is the most bizarre thing I've seen. But the one taboo thing is, even from Republicans like John McCain and Mittens Romney and all these other cowardly, feckless people, we're not supposed to question it. We're just supposed to accept it. The most staggering thing I've ever seen in my life. And when the Constitution was designed to protect us from this guy, or at least we're supposed to have an honest inquiry into it. And I really want Donald Trump to use his executive subpoena power to subpoena whatever is in the document or archives of the Hawaii Department of Health in Hawaii, and I want to see if that document there matches what's on the White House website. I submit to you, sir, it will not, or there will be no such document on file there. And if that document in Hawaii matches what's on the White House website, then that is a counterfeit too.
This whole thing is so interesting, isn't it? It's just fascinating. I can't believe where we're at.
It's beyond belief. But like I said, this is
know,
my beloved country now, and I truly love this country. And I just hate to see what's happening to it.
I have heard this from a lawyer that I had on the show, Stephen Pidgeon. He said that a Saudi sheikh, Prince Al-Wahid bin Talal, donated $25 million to Harvard with the stipulation that they had to allow Barack Obama into Harvard. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh, that sounds. Yes, I have heard those rumors. They're entirely credible to me. Again, we have never seen this man's college transcripts. We're supposed to accept their word that he's brilliant, beyond anything we've ever seen in the United States presidency, but we can't see his college transcripts. But we saw George W. Bush's, didn't we?
Oh, yeah.
We've seen Donald Trump's. We've seen
yeah.
Al Gore's. We've seen John Kerry's. But we haven't seen Barack Obama's. And he's supposed to be so bloody brilliant. Why is that?
It's a strange world we live in. You know, caller, I appreciate you calling in tonight because I know you've done your homework. You sound a little upset, which I think is understandable under the circumstances. And I appreciate you calling in, and I do encourage you to do so again, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for giving me the time, among other things, to vent. But one thing about, when we talk about these Democrats and these liberals, you don't have to make anything up. All you got to do is speak to the facts, and they're condemned by them.
You know, and the one overriding thing that I'd like to keep in picture here is somehow we got to hold this nation together. With all the craziness that's going on. I appreciate you calling in, caller. You really know your stuff. And please call in again in the future, folks. Wow, interesting show this evening. Turned a little different than I expected it to. I want to thank everyone that called in and listened. You've been listening to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. We'll be back Wednesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern. Talk to you later.